Good morning. And this is the introductory to strategies to complete FRQs. Keep in mind, FRQs are one of the two summative assessments on the AP exam. Here's a brief video if you'd like to watch it. However, I'm not going to cover the video in this presentation, but we'll talk about some of these strategies here within the notes presentation. When we talk about a free response question, the acronym again is an FRQ. Make sure you read the question twice, just like a multiple choice question. What do the questions ask? You want to ask yourself, does it want a definition, does it want an explanation, or an analysis? Those are going to be the three most operative verbs you'll see on the FRQ questions. Geographical terminology is critical. And that's why, again, we're taking the class to learn key terms, concepts, and main ideas, and those will be applicable to all FRQ questions. You want to make these geographical connections to real-world situations. So watching the news and reading newspaper and newsprint is going to be imperative to doing well in the FRQ. Thinking critically is necessary, so you have to demonstrate a knowledge base of understanding the information to explain it, and you must do multidisciplinary connections within each of the units. The operative verbs you'll see on the FRQ are going to be identify, define, describe, explain. To a lesser degree, analyze. You'll see quite often identify and explain. You'll see quite often explain and give blank examples. Make sure you always respond to how many examples the prompt indicates. Here's an idea of how to answer operative verbs. When you see identify, you're naming. When you define, you're just stating a description or giving the meaning. Describe, you're telling more about what the idea is that's being presented. So you're telling, giving more detail about the story or about the word or the concept. Identify and explain, so you're naming, and then you're giving details. So when you explain, you're making, you're giving, well, you're stating a claim essentially, and then you're giving more detail about that claim. Explaining, you're making a point clear, then provide examples as to why that point is being made. So you're telling more about that point that you're making when you explain. Discuss is to write about or consider viable arguments for a various point of view. When you compare, you're examining the purpose of a concept and its similarities or differences, and contrast is pointing out the dissimilarities. When you analyze, you're looking at different components. When you break down a idea or a main idea or a concept, you are breaking it down into components. So compartmentalizing the question or the topic. And then when you assess and evaluate, now you're judging. And when you judge, you're evaluating the positive points and the negative points. Or another way of looking at it is advantages or disadvantages. Quite frequently on FRQs in the past, it's always been these operative verbs that have been most prevalent. The new FRQs is planned to incorporate describe. So I would say if you're looking to understand operative verbs, these are the ones you're going to be focusing in on. Define, describe, identify, explain, and explain. And to a lesser degree, you might see analyze. When we're looking at images, keep in mind stimuli will be in 2 of the 3 FRQ prompts. And these images can be pictures, diagrams, graphs, maps, different types of map. As we learned in last unit, isoline maps, cartogram maps, choropleth maps, symbolic maps, thematic maps. All those can be images found on FRQs. For instance, in this particular map, here we see a flow chart of epicenter or migration patterns in the United States. So we can see that the migration patterns have a largest concentration in the south, and we can see movement to greater parts of the U.S. Practice interpreting maps. This will help develop through your map assignments and your reading guide assignments. Notice that with your reading guide assignments, you've already seen a lot of images, and you'll continue to see more because your reading guides are going to help you with practicing FRQ responses. When there's FRQs with no stimuli, this will be one of the 3 FRQ prompts you'll see on the AP exam. Through the course of our practice, you're going to see no stimuli, stimuli, and 2 stimuli. And I'll mix it up throughout the course of the year. For an FRQ, you'll have 25 minutes to complete the following prompt and embedded questions. For this FRQ, you have one prompt. The prompt indicates in 1798, Thomas Robert Malthus published an essay of Principle of Population in which he argued that population growth will inevitably outpace food production, resulting in widespread famine. That's your prompt. When you're looking at this FRQ, you want to spend 5 minutes to develop a quick pre-write or outline or mind map. And then you're going to organize your ideas, and then you're going to write out your response to the questions as you respond to each of the questions. Question A, for instance, identify and explain. So remember, identifies, list the ideas of what we're talking about here, and that's Malthus and future population issues. And then you have to explain. So you need to state claims and supporting facts or examples. So you will write out a response to this part A, and as you write it out, it has to tie into the prompt. All FRQ questions have to tie into the prompt. And remember, when you respond, it's geographical information. Do not provide fluff or do not write long journals about something that's irrelevant. Be concise to the exact question and what it's looking for in a response. In this case, it's looking for issues that relate to Malthus that you're just explaining that results in population issues such as malnourishment, and where do we see that in the world? We talked about that in Unit 1 about how that could be in areas of the world that is low developed, such as sub-Saharan Africa or South Asia. You can talk about how Malthus's theory is very much alive there, because we see within this unit we're studying population is that there's a high CBR, they have the highest natural increase rates, and they also have limited access to nutritional valued food. And then the part B, you'll respond to identify and explain 2 reasons why some geographers today believe Malthus' theory is used. Again, that would be, I guess, more applicable with describing sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia in part B. Part A, you would talk about 2 reasons why some geographers believe Malthus can be predict. Well, because we see that there's limited food production, we see that there's fast population growth, and you want to give examples of where we see that. All right, so this is one example of an FRQ you'll be looking at. This is no stimuli. The second is one stimuli. In this case, we see a population pyramid. The population pyramid will always have a prompt below it, or any image will have a prompt. The prompt states right here, the populations, sorry about that. The population pyramid the population pyramid shown represents a local area that has been affected by human migration. So in this particular question, we see the prompt. There will be embedded questions, and the embedded questions have to tie into answering that prompt. The second FRQ you will see is going to be 2 stimuli. So here we have a look at our religious sacred places. You have the Al-Aqsa Mosque, holy site of Islam, and then the Dome of the Rock, again a holy site of Islam. In this particular case, we don't see the prompt below it, but there should be a prompt, and then you'll have embedded questions. And all the embedded questions have to tie into the prompt and the images. And when you respond, use human geographical terminology of what you understand about the images, such as characteristics of Islam and sacred places, which we'll talk about later in our cultural patterns unit, Unit 3. When you organize your thoughts, address all parts of the question. Make sure you understand the embedded questions have to relate to the prompt, and if you have stimuli, it has to relate to the stimuli, using geographical evidence. So that means key terms, concepts, main ideas that you're learning in the class. Always support your answers with specific, accurate examples. You have to prove your claims. And an effective essay with 3 prompts there's not a hardline rule on how long it should be, but what we've seen with past FRQ practices, you're looking at least 3 pages or a page per FRQ. A solid paragraph for each part of the question. And what I'm talking about question is the embedded question that relates to the prompt. It's a pretty solid rule of thumb when answering FRQ questions. Answer the question in a formatted way of looking at the question. So when you have FRQs, you want to label the parts. So Prompt 1, Part A, Prompt 1, Part B. Write in paragraphs. Do not bullet point unless it asks you specifically to list or bullet point. No fancy introductions or conclusions. Those aren't necessary. Just get to the point. Supply relevant content that answers the question and what it's asking. Questions often address themes from across units. So again, it's multidisciplinary questions, and we'll get better at that as we go throughout the year. So you have to think broadly with specific supporting examples from different units. And again, that would be using main ideas, concepts, or key terms that we've used throughout the year. Use geographical terminology always and include examples. Again, avoid using fluff or generalizations. You'll get 0 points on those writings. You'll have 75 minutes to complete 3 prompts. That's on the AP exam. Be sure that the final answer is written on line pages provided, and then also you have to write legibly. However, for our practice FRQs, we'll be doing everything online. But when you take the FRQ in the spring, you will be expected to write it out by hand. So being legible is very important. Common mistakes. Students should always read the instructions that are provided in the FRQ booklet. It will not be read to you, so you need to make sure you read it. Some of the instructions indicate do not skip lines, write in ink, black or blue. You can strike through to void content. You will not erase because you're writing in pen, but you can strike through it. You can strike it out or void it, cross it out, and then draw insertion arrows with your new written response. Do not use bullet points or outlines unless the question tells you to. Questions may be answered in any order, but should be clearly labeled at the top of each page in the exam booklet. Avoid dump essays, where you're just writing about anything and everything. It has to be specific to the prompt and the embedded questions. So use evidence of examples that relate to the topic sentence. Do not rewrite the question. Again, you do not need an introductory paragraph. Get right to what the question is asking. Be concise. Answer the operative verb. Again, review what we talked about earlier in the presentation. Those operative verbs you most likely will see is going to be identify, explain, define, maybe describe, and maybe analyze. Or it might be explain and give examples. Make sure you write legibly and label. Pay attention to how many examples the question is asking you if it does state examples. Write answers on different human geographical scales. So human geographical scales are going to be on local scales, state scales, regional scales, global scales. Those are important geographical scales you're going to be writing on. Preparing the FRQ. Students are intimidated by the FRQ. You shouldn't be. We'll practice early throughout the units, and always with the reading guides, you're working on FRQ work with the operative verbs and using human geographical concepts and key terms to build your confidence. Your year-long activities will prepare you. Daily lessons we won't cover in the hybrid model, but in a traditional class we'd cover all this. But in the hybrid model, we'll cover FRQs always with, as I already mentioned, getting the content from ed puzzles, writing out your notes template, understanding the content, the main content of the class in the particular unit. And then you're also doing your reading guide. This all helps with building that knowledge base and also that writing and answering operative verbs and being concise with your responses and relating to what the question's asking. We'll see models, we'll apply models through online notes, and then as you build throughout the units of the year, you're going to be able to make connections between the units and also tying current events and real-world examples by paying attention to the news. You can use past FRQs that have been released by the AP College Board. We'll do practice FRQs. Your first FRQ will be 25 minutes, so Unit 2 will have 2 FRQs, so you have 50 minutes. We will never get to 3 FRQs, but when you get to the AP exam, you'll have 3 FRQs, you'll have 75 minutes. You have to time it out. Every FRQ should take 25 minutes. Break down that 25 minutes, 5-minute pre-write, 20-minute content write. Always understand the scoring rubric so you become very familiar with the confines and the expectations of a rubric. We will use the AP College Board scoring rubrics, and we'll have practice starting today. You can analyze past exam FRQs. There's the link. You can also find it on your AP College Board website. Here's an example prompt. I just want you to take a moment to think of these questions and how you'd respond. Here's the prompt. Human geographers use various maps and scales to help explain the impact of human activity on a global scale. 1A, describe how parallels and meridians determine an absolute location in a place. 1B, explain the difference between possibilism and environmental determinism. And 1C, what map projections display the most significant distortion and why? Again, take a moment to respond to each of these questions and practice the strategies that were just entailed in the video. Once you're done with that, right, you can see the scoring rubric. You can see how that would be graded right here. Click that link. And then the second practice, I want you to log on to your AP College Board website. When you log on, you will see a Unit 2 FRQ practice test. I want you to respond to the prompt, which is indicated here on the right. It'll look like this. Again, when you see this image, you know you're on the right question. Read the prompt and read the embedded questions and make sure that you answer exactly what the question's asking, and make sure all embedded questions tie into the prompt and the image. And again, this is not graded, it's just practice. So when you're done, I'll go through and grade it, and you're going to want to review your grade and look at the rubric. So again, you understand the FRQ process. Again, if you have any questions, you can always contact me, and that can be done through email, WebEx, or through Schoology Messenger. Make sure you practice and make sure you review the strategies. Good luck, everyone.